Waiting for the clock to turn what? Don't start late. We'll miss us if you start too early. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's March 30th, 2026 Board of County Commissioners meeting. We'll now call this meeting to order. First item on our agenda is citizen input. I have 3 blue forms here. If there's anyone online who would like to provide comment, you can also raise your hand. We'll start 3-minute comments per person, and the first person on our list is David Baker.
Do I just be here?
You can come on up to one of those.
A
any of
different
those
chair?
seats.
I will assume the middle blue chair.
If you sit there, then we can see you.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm thoroughly unprepared for this, but I have been to a couple. I've heard some conversations about this subject. So I just want to plead to all 3 of you that the managed camp or the sweep in Redmond, that it be delayed. And I know you put a letter to the Redmond City Council in regards to this already, but if there's some other way that you guys can put more pressure on the city to pause that sweep so that the managed camp can be come to full fruition and be ready for the movement of people, I think it's important from what I hear, and that's about all I have to say.
Thank you.
Next, we have Carol Carlson.
Hello, Carol. Okay. Hello, Chairman Chang and Commissioner DeBone and Commissioner Adair. My name is Carol Carlson, and I'm a resident of Redmond. I'm committed to doing everything I can to make life better for our homeless neighbors. I currently prepare food every Friday at Redmond Family Kitchen for folks that are served by the Street Kitchen in East Redmond. I host guests on Mondays at the Mountain View Fellowship, where they have showers and laundry. And the best thing about that job is that I get to listen to people as they're waiting for their laundry to finish. And it's really been a way to build relationships. And I want to carry that through, because relationships are what I think this whole process of moving homeless people should be about. I want to commend you for insisting that the city of Redmond hold off evicting people camping in Desert Rise until the managed camp is operational, like David said. The trusting relationships that are built by caregivers or case managers would be threatened if people have nowhere to go. And we know this because when China Hat was cleared, so many people were in the wind and lost that connection, that relationship, because there wasn't a clear plan for where each person would go. I've also wondered why Redmond has no temporary safe stay area, like the one at Juniper Ridge. In helping on the share van, I learned that relationships have been established with the Shepherd's House drivers and social workers who rode along. The area was patrolled and rules were posted everywhere. Have you thought of that option? At TSSA? I think it was a good one as an intermediate step, of course. Well, while I feel positive about your desire to put off the evictions, I must tell you that I'm concerned about the request for proposals that I read recently. Section 7 on the scope of the work is daunting. First of all, the operations manager is supervised by both county and city administrators. Now, I've held several jobs in my life, and even after retirement, and never have I had more than one supervisor. Secondly, the money offered in the RFP is not enough. This manager must hire at least one assistant and enter into contracts for services the camp needs. $250,000 a year would leave very little for the manager. Finally, I commend you for not using the term sweep for evicting folks from camps. We sweep dirt. We do not sweep people. Thanks for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you, Carol.
And the third blue form we have here is Gloria Olson.
Good to see you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm getting into this chair and get it under me rather than behind me. I'm Gloria Olson, and I'm the elder of this group. I've been around the truck a lot of times. I've been in a variety of career settings many times, and I've learned a great deal. I'd like to share a little bit about what I've learned in that process with you today, because I believe that there is a better way forward for all of us to move to our ultimate goal, and that is for Redmond to have that property that they want to make use of, as well as a good place to take the people who are living there. I'm going to follow my notes so I don't get on board, because I do have a board to take care of. Like I said, I'm Gloria Olson. I live in Redmond, and I really have been very concerned about the suggestions which are coming forward for moving people off that desert rise. There's a whole lot of better ways to do it and still clear that area. And I'd like to have you think about some of these. First of all, this city council agreement needs to be fixed, because one supervisor per outfit, per function, I think is enough. And that's something which I think you need to give some attention to. And I understand that the managed camp has not been taken care of, nor does it have someone to manage it yet. And I'm concerned that perhaps we need to call a meeting of the city council and all the service providers, including you as county commission, and include in that the population that is currently working with the members of this community, and that being the caregivers, the people who serve the services, make the services available, and also Shepherd's House, Jericho Road, Bethlehem Inn, and Neighborhood Impact. They all need to be there to have a conversation, to come up with an answer, not just to talk about it, but to talk about how and when and who's going to do it. Because those are the ways that we're going to make this happen. But it has to be in a room like this where everyone is equal with what they have to say and what they have to offer, and they're heard for what they say and offer, because they will come with experience and they will come with what I would call a plan, an idea as to how to move forward. Because that's how they work. That's what they provide. When you go to Shepherd's House, you see what they have accomplished in just a short time in making services available to the public that we're discussing. So if we could do it in such a way, then I believe we would have a chance to make a difference. And after that, then create a plan for this aggressive process of getting that camp opened. And knowing that it's going to meet the needs of a few people, to have a secondary space for people to move as it becomes available. And to have, as has been mentioned before, a safe place with services that's going to make it possible to have a place to take care of the garbage, to have water, to have a outdoor commode, and all that is necessary for people to keep a clean place, so that we don't have to be spending so much money to clean it up after it has been used. And I think that it's important that we provide people with the services and the rules wherever they go, no matter what. And I know that it's important because that's going to make a difference in cost to the citizens and the institutions. I would say that these people that you invite to this meeting to plan a different place forward, they're with the organizations that are going to be possible members to be the managed camp. And they will be able then to say, we have these kinds of skills, this kind of an experience, and therefore it's something that we can do. But I don't know what your business has been to make this information available. Who is going to be hired? How is that hiring going to be done? What are the pieces of information that have gone out? And who has that information gone to? That's not my business. I'm just saying that I think it's something that needs to be escalated and moved faster and more complete with the people who are accustomed to working with the population that we're discussing. And I might say that a long time ago, and I was in a career that I was hired to manage a new program on the block, just like this managed camp. I'd never done it. No one in the system had ever done it, but I was asked to set it up for the state of Oregon, which I did. And in that process, I was involved in hiring and staffing the organization. I was involved in making the budget, but I was not the final supervisor. There was only one supervisor that I worked with and that I reported to, and that's the way it was set up. And I think that's what you need to have for this managed camp. Contract with an organization who can do the work and do it with trust and ability and the ability to work with the people and make progress in getting a managed camp. So that's all I have to say. I just know that it's going to happen because you're smart, you're able, you've got two great big wonderful groups, that being the city council and the county commission and all the volunteers. And there's many volunteers, some of them in this room, who have worked with the people and know them and have their backs, and they know that what comes from that organization that's going to be the managed camp will have their backs. And so I thank you for hearing me. I'm done, and I wish you well.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Gloria.
Those are all the blue forms we have. Is there anyone else in the room who'd like to give public comment? And is there anyone online?
No one has a raised hand.
Seeing none, proceed to commissioner announcements, and I'll just mention to all the folks who just gave public comment, the discussion of Desert Rise and the operator RFP for the managed camp will be the first item on the first action item on our agenda. So if you want to stay tuned for that or stay for that discussion, it's coming up pretty soon. Any commissioner announcements?
Saturday, there was a kind of a mini cleanup, Southern Deschutes County, Newberry Regional Partnership, Public Lands Group. There's about a dozen of us, and we cleaned up a spot where there was 2 camp trailers, an abandoned RV, 3 disassembled ATVs, and it was about a 30-yard dumpster. So we really did an impactful cleanup there. The vehicles aren't gone yet, but at least it was a cleanup that was successful. And it was on BLM land, just kind of right through the trees where you can't see this. We've got some of those all, in the area that are just close to private property. So it's something that was on the sheriff's office radar for a while. We got it cleaned up this weekend.
There.
I have nothing.
I'll just report back that on Friday, the 3 commissioners who are kind of at point for the U.S. Highway 97 Safety Coalition met with the NACO, National Association of County Organizations, Transportation Policy Advisor, and he gave us some good insights on ways to ask the federal government to invest in and support safety initiatives, safety projects on 97. Just a lot of ideas on what's in the current surface transportation bill that we might want to be asking about if it isn't reauthorized and changed this Congress, which doesn't look like it's going to be. Things that we might be thinking about, asking about in a next surface transportation bill that, you know, they are trying to negotiate right now, and we'll probably be trying to negotiate that into next year, the next Congress. Yeah.
Hey, one more item. Yesterday was birthday party for Bev Clarnell. She was county commissioner here. First time I ever came into the county just to try to represent the Pine Rodeo. Way before I thought I would ever even be a commissioner. She was on the commission for that short period of time. So yesterday was a birthday party for her, 90 years old, up in Redmond. Greg Weldon was there, Ted Kulangoski was there, Betsy Johnson was there, and some other notable figures. So it was really just a wonderful little celebration of her service for the state of Oregon and Deschutes County, and a current resident of Deschutes County still. 90 years old yesterday.
She's a youngster.
Youngster, she says.
The one other thing I wanted to mention is, we heard last week about the passing of Kathy Skidmore, who was a longtime director of the Central Oregon Veterans Outreach Organization. Kathy played a tremendous role in supporting veterans who were trying to find their way out of homelessness, supporting veterans who were housing insecure, getting into housing, and providing all kinds of other health and human services type supports within our veteran population in Central Oregon. And she will be greatly missed.
Actually, I can bring it up now. Her service is at 11:30 on the 9th, and that's at the time of the Health Council. So can someone else go to the Health Council meeting? Because Kathy was going to be so missed. April 9th, is anybody available to take the Health Council meeting? Several of them have been canceled at the last minute, so I'm not sure about this one, but
So next Thursday.
yes,
At what
at
time?
12:30.
I wanted to be there for Kathy's memorial service as well.
Yeah, I can go to the Health Council.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Brown.
All right, any other commissioner announcements? Seeing none, we can proceed with our regular agenda. Item number 1 is, the topic is City of Redmond action to clear encampments from city-owned property referred to as Desert Rise. Anyone who's been tracking will remember that we began this discussion last week, and there was a request for us to pause the discussion until after we knew what the situation was going to be with the operator RFP for the managed camp. And so, Christy, I know you and Eric have a report back for us on that, and without further ado, we can go ahead and jump into that.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, I'm Eric Kropp, Deputy County Administrator.
Christy Bollinger, County Property Management.
We're going to provide an update to the board. We're going to start with the Desert Rise timeline, talk a little bit about the RFP process for the managed camp, and then conclude with some possible next steps for operating the managed camp. So that's kind of our format this afternoon. In terms of Desert Rise, the board has received emails about Desert Rise and asking the board to delay it, but just for the public's understanding, Desert Rise is the City of Redmond owned property. So the Board of County Commissioners wrote a letter asking the Mayor and Council to delay the closing of that. County Administrator Nick Lelak and I went to Redmond Council meeting last week and reported back to the board that the city planned to move forward with that closure. Christy and I met with Redmond City staff this morning, asked about the timeline for the closure of Desert Rise, and City of Redmond staff pointed us to the timeline that's in the City Council meeting packet on March 10th. So in that published meeting packet, the City of Redmond has the notification and outreach timeline. The timeline lists outreach occurring March 2nd to to March 31st. And then a notice on April 1. And then through April is reminder notices and outreach through the end of April, April 30th. And then this timeline lists May 1st as the final notice, May 16th to 31st as cleanup, and then a June 1st closed. And I'm happy to forward this timeline to the commissioners. And again, the timeline's from the Redmond City Council packet on March 10th. Next, I was going to talk a little bit about the RFP process, unless there's any other questions or conversations about the Desert Rise.
Eric, I was writing as fast as I could. What did you say was happening in May? So notice on April 1st, reminders
May
throughout the
1st,
month of April.
May 1st is listed as a final notice. And then May 16th to 31st is cleanup. And I'll forward this to the commissioner just because it's a nice timeline, easy to follow.
Thank you.
In terms of the RFP for the managed camp, a key component of the RFP was to find a camp operator that would operate the entire managed camp and also fulfill the City of Redmond code to open a managed camp. The Redmond City Code has very specific requirements, very thoughtful requirements on operating a managed camp. So that was the intent, is to find one operator for the managed camp. Throughout the process and in discussions with nonprofits, we heard lots of feedback about, several of them planned on not submitting. And kind of what we heard anecdotally was there was concerns about being able to get insurance. There was concerns about there's no other prototype or managed camp in the area. There's lots of unknowns. We heard concerns about the budget and also the fact that the $500,000 that the county had obligated was only for 2 years. And the goal was that the managed camp would continue to operate it after 2 years. But we really wanted to see if a nonprofit could do that after the first 2 years and find the funding to continue the operations of the camp. As the board knows, we put out the RFP. We received 3 proposals, and then there's an evaluation committee that reviewed the proposals. The evaluation committee consisted of Colleen Thomas. She's our supervisor of the host team, which is Housing Outreach Support. So what host does.
It's probably for team, yep.
Yes. There's lots of misnomers about host. What host does is they do street outreach to people who have mental illness and substance use disorder. So they bring behavioral health services to the people living houseless. Yes, they try to get people out of homelessness, but there's often a misperception that host is responsible to get the entire community of homeless people out of homelessness. Host simply provides behavioral health services to those out in the community and out who are homeless. We also had Amy Fraley from the City of Bend. She is their program manager over homelessness and houselessness. She's actually she's online. We had Linda Klein from the City of Redmond, and then Jared Arzaga from Bethlehem Inn. So that was the review committee. The review committee went through, scored the applications, and determined that the proposals did not satisfactorily meet the overall established criteria as outlined in the RFP. So basically, the review committee went through and determined that the proposals did not meet what we needed or what we were looking for. The proposals were very thoughtful, and two of the proposals came from nonprofits that are relatively new. They do good work, but they haven't done anything like a managed camp. So that was ultimately the concern of the review committee. So basically, the RFP process is now over. You know, there was not a successful proposer, and really we're on to Plan B. Two of the county commissioners helped on. We had a kind of a subcommittee made up of City of Redmond staff, elected officials, also a couple nonprofits, and then commissioners. Commissioner Chang and Adair kind of rotated back and forth, and that review committee or that subcommittee helped us design the managed camp and also provided input into the RFP. And we talked a lot about we may need a plan B. We may need a plan B. So we're at that point. And before I talk about a possible plan B, I want to stop there and see if there's any questions about the RFP process and if there's anything I missed. Christy.
Did you include yourself as a reviewer?
No, and I was also.
Anyone else, Kristen?
No, just the 5.
So
Eric
when
got
did
them all.
you, when did you come up with this decision that none of them were gonna work?
Last week,
What day?
the committee submitted the scores on what, Wednesday?
Wednesday, but I had one score sheet lagging till Friday, so that's when the letters went out on Friday after I received it.
I just wanted to say about the RFP process. Early on in the process within the managed camp committee, I suggested that we do a request for qualifications instead of an RFP. You know, an RFP says, you know, we know exactly what we want, here it is, can you do it? An RFQ says, do you have skills and qualifications to do something like this? If so, we might determine you to be qualified, and then we can talk about what this might look like. And a number of our public commenters this morning said, you know, you really should have service providers involved in the planning of the operations of this managed camp. And I just want to say, I think it would have been a better way for us to approach this if we had done a request for qualifications and then had a partner to work with in designing what the operation would be like. And, you know, I mentioned that not to just rub it in, but to say that that may be a smart way for us to proceed from this point forward, to, you know, find a qualified partner to work with to design what this, you know, how this managed camp might operate.
So in terms of Plan B, I suggest that county staff get together with City of Redmond staff and talk about these different options. One option could be to do an RFQ. Another is to break out the RFP, which had, you know, was much broader into little individual components. There are some things that city and county staff could do in terms of operating the managed camp. And so rather than having a big, broad RFP, we would break out individual components. In addition, if we went that route, we might be more likely to get interested parties that don't have to come in and assume the liability for the managed camp. Ideally, the goal was to hire an operator. They would have insurance and take the liability of operating the managed camp. If we went to this other model, it would be likely that the county retained the liability, which would be more attractive probably for nonprofits. But I mean, we manage liability all the time, but I just want to point that out to the commissioners, that if we use a different model, it could be that the county retained the liability for the operations of the managed camp.
And I'd just like to add real quickly, if we did proceed with an RFQ, we'd still have to follow that with an RFP. So it's a lengthy process in hindsight that I see where you're coming from, but just to put that out there that it's a very long process to do both.
How much money do we have invested, both the city and the county at this moment in time?
For the capital,
Right, for all the work that we've done, the building, everything looks nice. I know the bid was a couple $100,000 more than we thought it was gonna be, to be honest. I just wonder how much money do we have invested?
We could look at that, Commissioner Adair, and follow up with you. Happy to do that. I don't want to
Right.
misquote that number.
Okay. Because we have a lot of money invested already. A lot.
Just Taylor Northwest alone was like 670,000, but we have
Right.
design and there's lots of other components to that.
Right, and the power and all that.
Yes.
Yeah, I know their number because it was more than we thought. So, all right.
Eric, this breaking the RFP into parts and bidding those out. There would need to be essentially then the kind of oversight, coordination, management of the managed camp would be then a county function. I mean,
Yeah, or,
somebody's gotta be the conductor
yes,
in an
yes.
orchestra, right?
One possibility is to have a team of city and county staff that would do it collaboratively. Ultimately, it's county property, so the county would be the decision maker. But we have a very successful model at the TSSA where City of Bend, county staff, even other partners meet every Monday and go over issues at the TSSA, and we work collaboratively on that. So I see a similar model as a possibility where we have county staff, a couple of city staff that meet every week and talk about things that are going on at the managed camp.
And I can see the appeal of taking that kind of approach to get the managed camp open sooner than later. But do you think that kind of setup, that organization is helpful for eventually getting to more unified, management structure, identifying an operator that can, take on, primary leadership, organization, management, supervision of the managed camp?
You mean to use that model as an interim until we bring some?
Yeah, I mean, we bring various organizations on that help get the thing started, play certain roles, and then maybe one of them, after seeing how it all works, is willing to step up and say, we will run the managed camp.
Yeah, I think that would be nice. I mean, one challenge would be kind of the RFP process. So if you hire a nonprofit to do one sliver of it, and then you say, okay, now we want you to do the broader, we still have the public
Right.
RFP process.
We would have to run another RFP in a year or something like that.
Right.
At least the camp would be functional, operational, it would be demonstrated success, and then so it wouldn't be such a new venture for somebody to begin, especially maybe a new nonprofit.
It's like in the construction world, it'd be the equivalent of, a bunch of contractors working together and then somebody stepping up and saying like, I will be the prime and you all can sub with me, but I'll take on the responsibility of being the prime and all the things that go along with that.
That's kind of what we were hoping would happen with the current RFP or the one that just didn't. Yeah.
The other thing we could do is we'll have to check with procurement, our procurement staff and possible legal staff is in the RFP or Q, just put that's a possibility. So that might give us some options later.
And Eric made a really good point earlier too, just that a lot of the feedback we heard, when we were letting people know that the RFP was going to be released, letting nonprofits and our partners know, is that there was just concern that there was only 2 years of guaranteed funding. So that was, I think, a obstacle.
Yeah, no, I've heard, I talked to a lot of service providers about the RFP, while it was still open and heard those concerns, also heard, this is, $250,000 sounds like a lot of money, but, if the security, as we know, if the security is included, then, that could take $100,000 a year if to do the security model that we've used, for example, in the TSSA. So there was a lot of concern about the funding as well. So that piece alone, breaking the security piece out. I see the potential success of breaking this into pieces. And I'm just trying to figure out how you get to something a little bit more, A, more efficient, and B, more where the city and the county don't have to play as substantial of a management role in the long run.
So what's the city of Redmond putting up, if we're putting up 250,000 a year?
According to the IGA, they're not for the operations. And the IGA had the capital cost and that broken down between the city and the county. And then the IGA had county earmarking $500,000 for operations.
I thought the city had like
CD
$20,000 of CDBG.
Yes.
Or something like that.
30,000.
Yeah.
20 or 30.
Okay, and the fact that there's up to 90 people at the Desert Rise, we set it up for 36 now, and we really need, the additional 36?
Yeah,
I mean,
existing
but we don't
campus
have an operator.
Correct. It's 2 loops of 18 campsites, which is 36. And then there's room to expand, but no existing plans or funding to expand at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're done talking about the managed camp yet, but I mean, I think that's a good segue to the Desert Rise discussion. And kind of our letter asked the city of Redmond to postpone until the managed camp is up and running. But I think, just given the number of people we're talking about putting in motion between the county's 137 acres, 17th Street, and now Desert Rise, we need to be talking about more than just the 36 sites. So A, asking the city about investing in expansion of the managed camp. I would love to see this. It would be great if we could actually run the managed camp for a little while, make sure it's successful before we expand it, but it's something, to seriously be thinking about, asking for a commitment from the city of Redmond from. And I think this idea of something like a temporary safe stay area, in addition, is another good thing to ask for partnership and commitment from the city of Redmond on. If you're wanting to move forward with this sometime in the near future, then we need to think about what happens when you put all those people in motion, and how do we ensure that we don't have the worst possible outcomes from that. Any thoughts?
I'm not supportive. I haven't been supportive since the beginning. We should have offered for the city to do this, and we could have helped them financially. Now we're down the path of 2 bosses, not real clear about how we're gonna manage this. It's a 20 or 30, maybe 30% solution that is gonna cost a lot of money with an unknown implementation. So I would have backed way up and done, as I say, temporary safe stay area is one concept, but in the urban growth boundary, we could have done a long-term visitor area, whole different concept, but also the concept that we'll partner with the city, but now the city is taking action in front of us, because we've been trying to do a land swap for the fairgrounds for 10 years. Now the city's gonna jump in and say, oh, we need to move these folks over here. So the partnership isn't working out real well. Counties don't house people. Counties are urban outside of cities. Cities is where people are. So we're stepping into an area that isn't even traditionally a county function. We don't have reoccurring revenue for this in any sense. So, as I say, I haven't been supportive with some of my concepts, but
Yes,
I would have gone about 4 steps back before I would have done this.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize that now that we actually know what a long-term visit area is like, it really is not very different than a temporary safe stay area. You can't just draw lines on a map, have people sign a piece of paper, and then you forget about it. It actually takes a certain amount of management, takes a certain amount of infrastructure, takes a certain amount of
Oh, but we haven't
supervision.
researched it,
And
I
that's
tried it.
basically what a temporary safe stay area is. So you drawing the distinction between this long-term visitor area, which is something that you put out there without a very clear understanding of what it is. And temporary safe stay area is problematic.
Well, so now we're going down the path of a managed camp, and that's not well defined, and now we're going after spending how much money? $1 million, and we still don't even know what the future looks like. We don't have people that are falling in line to be able to operate and manage this thing, so
Managed
none
camps-
of it's real.
Managed camps are not, it's not something that people have a lot of experience with here in Central Oregon, but it is something that people do have experience with in other regions. You know, I've been talking about the Medford Urban Campground #1 for years. You know, the idea that you keep bringing forward that, you know, wasn't clearly understood or defined.
We don't need to
A long-term
debate.
visitor
I've been
area is
outvoted
an
on
idea
this
that
for
you brought from Arizona, right? You know, even farther away.
We don't need to
In the
debate it,
road.
I mean,
Okay.
if we wanna change direction, I'm available for that, but
Well, then the question is, what are we doing right now? In response to the city of Redmond's plans to clear desert rights? And if you don't wanna do anything and you don't have any ideas, then that's fine. You can just say that.
I have had
Okay.
ideas and they haven't been supported. And I'm gonna be professional and supportive of the will of the board.
Well, you're part of defining what the will of the board is. And the moment that we are at right now requires thinking on your feet and thinking forward from all three commissioners.
Well, and I would like to go backwards then. Is that supported by my fellow commissioners?
You know, undoing building the managed camp, I don't think that is feasible.
Giving the land
So
to
I have
the
a
city of Redmond for the Redmond to be able to operate. We don't need to be in the middle of this like we're a partner with a partner that may do something different than we intended on. But yeah, please, Commissioner.
Thank you. So, do we have to go to an RFQ? Can we go back to an RFP if we just say the county will take the liability? And, I mean,
Yeah, we can do a
because
slim.
that is huge. I can understand why no one in this world would want to. We all know that Medline is right there. And we all know that that company, it's international. It has been pounded on. You look around it, it looks like it's in Eastern Germany. It's got barbed wire around the building. I mean, those people have been so patient. And so I can understand why Redmond wants to do what they want to do. We actually have to make progress, and I would say the county can do that. We really need to get those people moved. Who knows what fire season is gonna look like, but we've heard that there's a lot of questionable issues coming out of that group of 90 people. And I know we've already had a murder there this year out in East Redmond. So I would think if the county could take the liability, go back out, and maybe that would help people, give them the wherewithal to apply at this time. But we've got to do something. And we need to do it sooner rather than later. We don't need to wait another 6 months before we get something done. We have a serious investment here. Taylor Northwest, thank you for the job they did.
So Commissioner Dare, do you support this idea of breaking the RFP into pieces?
Right, if that's what it takes, yeah, break it into pieces. I mean, I knew somebody that wanted to apply, and of course, they've never run something like this before, but do they know how to run businesses? Yes, they do. So, I texted them when I heard this unfortunate circumstance, and I said, hey, have you guys gotten any closer? Because somebody needs to be able to run this, and honestly, it's a huge investment, and yet it's a huge drag on East Redmond. And you saw what the city council said to us.
So I'm gonna ask county legal counsel, if we wanted to take this new RFP approach, is that something that we should move and take a formal vote on?
Yeah, I think staff has enough direction that they can prepare the RFP document.
Right, so that's a little bit of clarity and direction, so I would be a second vote on that at least. So that's a little bit of clarity on direction with the managed camp RFP and getting that up and running. Is there anything more that we would like to say or do about Desert Rise? We've written a letter, wasn't supported by all of us, but it was supported by a majority. If we don't want to say anything different about Desert Rise or additional, then we can just leave it at that, or we can talk about what else we would like to do on the Desert Rise front.
It's 90 people that live there, a lot of crime. Need we say more? I can understand. It wasn't what I would have liked them to come back with, but I can definitely understand why they even had those businesses testify at their meeting, I believe, didn't they? Yeah, they were there testifying, you know, they're done with this. Go by and look at the barbed wire at the top of their building. Yeah, it's, you know.
One thing I wanted to mention is county staff told the city of Redmond staff that people currently living on Desert Rise, when they get relocated, that they don't have approval to go onto the county's property. So I just want to make sure that that's consistent with board expectations. So when the city says, okay, you gotta leave Desert Rise, oftentimes you have to have a tow truck to help move people because they often can't on their own. And people say, well, where can I go? We're telling city staff to not direct people onto county-owned property. People on their own may end up on county-owned property, and that's pretty hard to control, but just in terms of board expectations, that's what county staff has been communicating to City of Redmond staff. Just wanted to bring that up.
And there are a number of service providers who I've spoken to said, that they are parsing apart the population at Desert Rise. There are people who have been there for a long time, who engage with services, who can really benefit from certain kinds of supports to continue on their pathway out of homelessness. And then there's also, people who've arrived there very recently who are, bad elements who are making it a much more dangerous and scary place out at Desert Rise. So I'm not talking about the service providers weren't as concerned about those bad element people who have recently arrived. They were concerned about people who they are currently working with. And were asking me, well, we want to know from the county and the city where we can relocate people who are on the pathway out of homelessness, engaging with services with us, and we're not getting a clear answer. So our thoughts on this question are actually really important. I mean, we could. We could, if we are concerned about that segment of the population at Desert Rise, we could tell service providers that they are allowed to bring some of those people to county land. It's pretty complicated.
We did ask the City of Redmond staff this morning if we get asked, what do we tell people, and they didn't provide an answer yet. I'm not sure if they plan to, and so what staff plans on doing is saying, pointing back to the City of Redmond, because as the property owner, only the property owner could speak to them. That's staff's plan, unless the board gives us direction otherwise.
What about the safe parking in Redmond? Hasn't it expanded somewhat? Is there any safe parking available for these people?
They maintain a wait list.
Yeah.
I want to get in there.
Well, I want to acknowledge Catherine Osborne is in the room. Thank you for coming. Anyway, yeah, no, I would say we need to go back out as quickly as we can.
And beyond that, on the topic of Desert Rise, we're happy with our letter as written, and leave it at that.
Right. I mean, they need to get they need to get the area cleaned up. So when we said to clean up the area, didn't say to move the people on our land.
Yeah, I mean, I would like if.
Are those joint meetings, and have they ended then? The joint meetings that we were alternating going to? No, we're still having those, right?
Another one,
Because I'm due to go to the next one.
yeah.
So I might want to go and say, gee, Redmond, how about forking some money up for this? You know, really,
Well,
maybe they can find somebody.
that is the outstanding piece. Our letter didn't ask for anything in terms of long-term thinking and commitments to, you know, what's gonna happen with the people who are cleared out at Desert Rise. And I do think that we could be asking for partnership on expanding the managed camp beyond 36 sites. We could be asking about doing something like a temporary safe stay area and co-investing in that. We could be asking about the idea that I put out here last week, which was, you know, what if we the area that is that's currently delineated as green on the map, what if we gave those areas to some of those areas to the city of Redmond, and then they would have as much of a concern about what was happening there in the long term as we. I want to just put those ideas back on the table. But if we don't want to do anything beyond what we said in the letter at this point in time, we can just leave it at that also.
When its comments are made, like we need to spend more money, we should understand where revenue source is. We don't have recurring revenue for this. The general fund of Deschutes County is very much taxed at this point in time. We're trying annually to make sure our income and expense lines don't cross. So I don't take it lightly when it's mentioned we should come up with more money for this. This isn't a revenue tax base or anything. So let's please be sensitive about that.
Well, I would ask you when we are holding the bag later on, whether you want us to be holding the bag alone or whether you want us to be holding the bag with the city of Redmond. Because it'll probably be a lot cheaper to be sharing the bag than holding the bag all by ourselves.
Well, my vision is that cities are where people are located. People are in cities. We do need to support our cities, but for us to kind of negotiate and keep stepping out into the past an urban growth boundary, urban reserve, resource land, open code enforcement case on ourselves, and we need to take that all into account. So we can't just keep spending money on this. There's no feedback loop for, you know, an appropriate tax base to be able to spend this dollars.
Yeah, the concerns here are less about what side of the urban growth boundary we are on than who owns the land, where people have ended up and where people might be going. We own the land where people might be going. The city owns the land where people currently are, you know, in terms of Desert Rise. So that is nothing to do with state of Oregon land use planning or urban growth boundaries or what's the edge of the city and what's the county unincorporated. We own land where people are going to be relocating to, and the city owns land where they're trying to remove people from. Well, if we don't wanna discuss this any further, then we can move on to our next item. Courthouse expansion update, item number 2. Thanks everyone for waiting for us for a little bit. That's discussion. Me on the screen.
Good afternoon.
Whenever you're ready.
Am I showing up, Brendan?
Somebody left their jacket behind. It was, Corey grabbed it and brought it outside. Thank you. There's always lost and found. Kids that leave their stuff behind, lost and found, are always quick to try it.
Okay, good afternoon, commissioners. We're here for our March update for the county courthouse expansion update. I'm Eric Nielsen with County Facilities Capital Improvement Manager.
Corey Loomis, Fence Contractors.
Yeah, Lee Randall, Facilities Director, here online.
Okay, so this week, or this month, sorry, you can see on the webcam view there, a lot of the scaffolding's come down on the outside of the building. There's a lot of activity around the site, but the site is looking a little more organized and complete than it did last week, or last month, excuse me. So a lot of progress has been made as we get close to the completion of the expansion. Today, we will actually start with talking about the construction timeline, then go into the construction progress, talk about upcoming work, and then end with the budget update. So I will turn it over to Lee to talk about the current construction timeline.
So in a slightly different order, this month, I just wanted to touch base on a schedule update that has come about since we last spoke with you. Working backwards from the final completion, which is August, we are still on track for that final completion. We're looking at completing the existing building renovations, which will be our final certificate of occupancy in July. And then our most recent targeted date was for the temporary certificate of occupancy so that state court and the sheriff's office could begin moving into the project for the expansion. As I reported to the board last week, that has changed. We have a 3-week extension of that portion of the schedule. We're still targeting just a week further for the soft opening in early May and possibly late April. So that is a slight schedule change that we wanted to provide that information to the board up front. As we're finishing the final paving, we ran into several issues with work in the right of way, and then also with integrating the fire alarm system from the existing system to the building. So I'll just pause there for any questions.
It's not really gonna feel like a delay per se for anybody other than kind of the transitioning internal, correct?
Correct. We had been allowing a flexible amount of time between that temporary certificate of occupancy and the soft opening. With extending the TCO date, we're actually able to take less time in between those two milestones. And so we're only looking at about a week difference in soft opening.
Great.
Okay, and I'll turn it back over to Eric.
Okay, yeah, actually the one update on this schedule that we'll make for next time is we're actually targeting the ribbon cutting for the expansion, not in May or June, but most likely in August. So more to come on that. All right, so I will walk through some photos of the job site as it looks recently. So again, they're making really good progress on site work. These photos show the right-of-way improvements on Harriman and Greenwood. They have concrete sidewalks in, sidewalks up to the building entrance and egress points, as well as the parking garages. And then you can see they've prepped the grades around on both streets to kind of pave back up to the curb line in the right of way. Concrete planters have also gone in all the way around the building. You can see those on the right, in the image on the right along Greenwood. And moving on to Bond Street near the front entrance, the biggest thing you'll notice is the cast in place concrete vehicle barriers in the photo on the left, and then the crash rated bollards on the right. So those are two security measures that we took to, with removing the parking along Bond Street, we then put in vehicle barriers to improve security at the entrance. Building exterior, a lot of progress has been made there too. There was scaffolding and swing stage hanging scaffolding around the building for a little while now, but they've completed the panels on the south side. They're getting more complete on the east side. They're wrapping their way around the building, and the remaining part will be kind of where the two expansion and the existing building tie together. And then along the west side on Bond, kind of similar status. Main elevations are complete. Some of the tie-in points are still ongoing. So here's an example of where, like, this image on the left is taken from the existing building, looking at the expansion. They've installed the metal panels. They're working on tying in the expansion joints in the roofing. And the image on the right is the new lobby roof with the new expansion and kind of the new panel system being completed as you work your way around in that U shape. Inside the building, a lot's changed. Here we can see the public lobby. So finishes have largely gone in. You can see now the security desk has been constructed, bringing in the new kind of guardrails to route people around into the security checkpoint. Lighting is in, casework's going in. There's a lot of above ceiling work still with kind of finalizing lighting and mechanical.
Just acknowledging, I was able to go to her about 2 weeks ago with the team here, and Brenda was at the front desk, and we were walking out the door. I said, "Hey, Brenda, you want to go?" So she was able to come, and we just put hard hats on and walk through it. But it's also more progress since we were just there with those separation fences and everything.
Yeah, it's changing fast. So about every week, it's a noticeable change. The new public service counters are complete. You can see there's some wooden pews that are staged there that'll go in the hearing room, but on the staff side, systems furniture has been installed. So about ready to go once the state courts IT gets in there. Similar in the open office, the systems furniture has been installed throughout the open area as well as in the private offices. In these areas, we've gone through and punched them. So we're kind of been doing a phased punch approach with the secure staff areas. We've gone through and punched that and done corrections, and then they're still finishing out the areas in the lobby.
You're referring to a punch list, just the little things to be done.
Yeah, so it's owner, architect, design team, state courts, sheriff's office. We've all kind of gone through it. Yeah, quality control, just kind of wrapping loose ends up. Break room and the restroom, those are complete as well. We have appliances in the break room. All the fixtures and partitions are in the restrooms. And then the courtrooms, again, a lot of progress. The finishes are largely complete. In these photos, the audio visual is kind of the remaining part, which is the paid for through state courts, but contracted through Pence. So their subcontractors doing a really good job getting us set up. There's still some black stripes you can see in the back. Those are the panel joints where some sound acoustic panels will be installed on the walls, but I think we're leaving those off till most of the work is done to keep dust down.
Carpet was going in and the
Yeah.
tops of those short walls weren't on yet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so that's now complete with,
Yeah.
carpet, solid surface, kind of countertop trim around the short walls and along the judge's bench. That's all complete now. So I will have Corey talk about upcoming work.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So yeah, we're really in the final stages of punch lists and final inspections and all that sort of thing for the expansion piece. So now you're really getting down into low volt, bringing in, the county's groups to get their systems online, make sure all the access controls working like it wants to do, wants to be, fine tuning cameras and all that. We're going through building commissioning, so that's a third party group that really comes in and keeps us accountable to the plans and specifications and make sure that everything's installed like it should be. So we've been doing that for some time now, and that'll continue on. Building commissioning doesn't just stop when we hand the building over either. We do seasonal testing, so the summer is gonna bring a whole different set of conditions than fall and winter would. So we'll continue that process for another while down the road. As Eric mentioned, just completing site improvements. This week's gonna be an important week to get our bit of paving done, finish up our sidewalks, start getting bike racks down and some of those last pieces there. And then we'll be moving into landscape and irrigation. Great conversations with the city that gave us some latitude. We didn't want to put plants in the ground where we're getting 30-40 degree swings at any given time. So we've been coordinating with the city on that piece. Working through final inspections. It's been kind of a phased process. We're working with the city on all our mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire alarm, final inspections. That's an ongoing process. Continuing our punch walks and corrections and final cleaning. And then we're gonna move into that staff move-in process, which will trigger getting over into the remodel, finishing up those parts and pieces. So big picture, that's about it over the coming weeks.
Yeah. Any questions before we talk about the budget?
Just going back to the barriers and bollards. Trying to figure out how to ask this question. Typical passenger vehicle, pickup truck, something like that, driving 20-30 miles an hour, I mean, will that be completely deflected by those bollards and barriers, or?
Yeah, that's.
I mean, what would crash through that, or what can those barriers withstand?
We'd probably hold off from getting into specifics. I can tell you that they are an engineered system designed to protect the public in those those spaces.
They're specifically engineered for a crash rating to protect the building from a vehicle. Yeah.
Not just an accidental, like, oh, like I went out of my lane and I bumped into this, but somebody was trying to crash.
Yeah, and through the design process and then again during construction, we've touched base with Homeland Security and their kind of protection guidelines, and so we followed some of their guidelines on this. Yeah. Okay, we will now move on to the budget update.
Okay, I'm going to take this section for the team. We'll just provide a brief update on some of the high points that we typically hit on, and then if you have any questions, we're happy to answer any questions. Starting at the top, under Pence's contract, there's about $9 million in billing remaining of work to complete. Much of that work is underway, and we'll be receiving the bulk of those billings over the next 2 to 3 months, with most of the project costs wrapping up this fiscal year by June 30th. As it relates to contractor contingency and owner contingency. We've been tracking that closely and providing updates each month. You'll note that as of the printing of this report, there was about $1 million left in the contractor contingency. As I've been saying all along, there is a significant number of changes that are in process or that we expect could come up as we enter the remodel project. So some of those that are in process are related to the site work and work in the right of way. We're still finalizing some of those costs, as well as the fire alarm challenges and the envelope. So we'll continue to process that, and by next month's update, we'll have much of that work will be processed, but there is a significant amount of work yet to be done related to the contingency under the contractor side. Similarly, on the owner side, if you go to page 2, there currently we're showing about $600,000 remaining, but similarly, there are some encumbrances against the owner's contingency that we're currently processing, and we'll have a full update next month related to that. We're confident that the contingency will carry through to the end of the project. We do have the remodel work coming up. That's always a challenge. There's the possibility of some unknowns as we finish up some of the work in the basement, but that's the update as it relates to contingency. A good portion of the state court funds for FF&E and for audiovisual have not been billed or processed yet. So we're still showing a significant balance under FF&E, but much of that work has been installed, just hasn't been billed yet. Any questions related to the budget update? All right.
I just acknowledging that the permits and fees line goes way up. The plan check and permits have $500,000, $560,000. So that's amazing. I mean, we're bidding, we're the contractor and the subs and everybody's so tight on knowing our numbers, and then we have a $500,000 estimate for the city and it doubles.
Yeah, so that the big part of that was kind of unforeseen to the amount of SDC fees that we ended up paying. So we pulled from owner contingency to make up that balance.
Just observing, we don't know what our fellow government's going to do to us, and it was such a weird situation. And I can imagine people trying to build anything. We don't know what the SDCs are going to be.
Contingency.
And related to that, some of the challenges, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but we ended up with part of it was knowing which category. So as a whole, originally we had the 900,000 budgeted. We revised that to 1.3 million, and there was still a deviation there. But the 560,000 that you're referring to, Commissioner, part of that is the challenge of, even if we have a total percentage that's fairly close, knowing which bucket that's going to go into as we pay those fees to the city.
That's fine.
Okay, I'll turn it back over to Eric.
That's all we had. So if there's any further questions, otherwise we'll see you next month.
Well, so the HVAC is on. The systems are keeping it hot and cold because we might see a weather event here pretty soon. So we'll see if it stays warm enough, and the provisioning or the third-party company out there keeping track of all the big HVAC mechanical. That was interesting to learn about because it's quite a system.
Yep. Yeah, no, it is.
So Eric, the SDCs for the city, the 485,000, that'll be due when we get our certificate of occupancy then?
No, we've already paid that in order to get the building permit. So
No, it says that there's a remaining balance on it. SDCs, remaining balance 485.
Yeah, and I think that's what Lee's referring to, where we had some of the money that was used for under the permits and fees bucket was used to pay SDCs. So the net balance of where we were under on our estimate was 29,736. Once it all settled out. If we had moved things into different buckets, it wouldn't have reflected the kind of accurate accounting of where we were over and where we were under.
Well, the treasurer's next, well, very soon, the CM.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our treasurer's report, item number 3.
Good afternoon, commissioners. For the record, Bill Coon, Sheets County Treasurer. Hard to believe it's only been, almost 5 weeks since we last met. There's been a lot that's happened since then.
1 war ago.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll try to remain somewhat concise here. There's a lot of topics here that I want to cover in a short amount of time. Just a short few days after I presented the January Treasurer's Report, the U.S. and Israel militaries commenced with a coordinated military operation against Iran. They included heavy bombing, missile attacks targeting Iran's senior leadership and military commanders. In response, as we know, Iran attacked Israel and various military bases and consulates around the Middle East. They also attacked various countries, including Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and others, bringing multiple countries into the fray. And more importantly, Iran announced a full closure of the strategic Strait of Hormuz, which as a strategic choke point is essentially bringing oil shipments out of the Middle East to a halt. And this is impacting roughly 20% of global oil shipments. With a predictable shock on oil prices, we've seen oil prices exceed $120 a barrel, with a high degree of volatility daily based on each day's headline news. A large percentage of the world's fertilizer is also transported through the strait, which is problematic due to spring farming activity in the Northern Hemisphere. And also I read an article this morning that 10% of the world's aluminum material is actually produced in the Middle East, and that's being impacted as well. Should be noted that the current market disruption isn't just about supply, but it's really access to supply. Currently, the U.S. is the world's largest oil producer at 13.6 million barrels a day, which is well ahead of second place Saudi Arabia at 9.4 million barrels a day. 91% of Iranian crude oil is currently or was being exported to China, which while having significant strategic oil reserves, China has limited domestic production, so that's having an impact there as well. The U.S. only imports 11% of its oil from the Middle East. So even though we're the world's largest oil producer, we are being impacted by what's happening there domestically. The Federal Reserve Open Market Committee met for 2 days of meetings, March 17th and 18th, and concluded to leave interest rates unchanged. Major concerns were raised regarding the impact of significantly higher fuel and energy, and secondarily food prices in general. Gas prices are up roughly 90 cents a gallon since the start of hostilities, and diesel prices have risen even higher. I bought diesel in John Day Friday afternoon, and it was $6 a gallon. So this is an evolving situation with no immediate off-ramp in sight. And as a result, early predictions right now for very limited rate reductions through the balance of 2026. The Fed basically wants to keep dry powder in the event that they need to lower rates to stimulate some economic activity. I have been reading recently, several prominent economists have raised the issue of potential stagflation, with a combination of rising prices and stagnating growth posing a real threat. High energy costs are likely to dampen consumer spending and curb business investment in the near term, as both businesses and consumers grapple with elevated bills and ongoing uncertainty. So obviously very, very close attention is being paid to kind of current economic activity. I think I mentioned last time we met, while the first government shutdown of 26 was resolved, we are now still in the middle of the second shutdown, which commenced on February 14th. And while it was initially felt that the initial effects of the Department of Homeland Security shutdown were expected to be limited, the impact on TSA and airport security has been significant. However, on Friday, President Trump signed an emergency order ordering TSA workers to get paid immediately, and I guess they were paid over the weekend. And that has resulted in much improved wait times at airports over the last several days. Latest CPI report in February showed inflation remained at a 2.4% rate, which was flat with the prior month, and it was in line with analysts' expectations. It seems like an eon ago. The February jobs report actually showed the U.S. had negative 92,000 job losses for the month as job gains, which was far below the expected gain of 55,000 jobs. As a result, unemployment ticked up to 4.4%. It should be noted that there were a couple of reasons analysts saw in those numbers, which were unseasonably cold weather in the eastern part of the U.S., disrupting construction, transportation, and other outdoor activities. And there was also a large healthcare strike in California that likely negatively impacted the data as well. I also found it interesting that it now appears that many large U.S. corporations are cutting staff in the near term to help fund significant investment in AI. So that's basically how they're freeing up the dollars to heavily invest in AI as they're cutting staff today to hopefully realize gains into the future. And I found it interesting in our last department head meeting on March 12th, both our facilities department and community development reported a larger than anticipated pool of applicants for recent openings. So I think we're starting to see some tightening in the jobs available and an increased level of interest there. The February 2026 Producer Price Index, again, tracks what businesses are paying each other, showed a surge in pricing with the annual rate climbing to 3.4%, which was the highest rate since February of 25. And this indicates that there's pipeline pressure building upstream, which will likely impact consumer prices as well. With the military action in Iran, excuse me.
Could you start that sentence again? I missed the beginning of it because it got interesting, but what,
Yeah.
just that last pipeline.
Yeah, what's happening is that when, so wholesale pricing, so when businesses are buying at a wholesale level and prices go up, it increases pressure to pass that increased cost on
I missed
the
the beginning
consumer.
of that sentence as I was.
Yeah, it's really, it's
Got it. I understand what you're
upstream
saying, yep.
pricing pressure, which likely will have an impact on the consumer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, built, yeah.
It's building
Inflation's
pressure
coming.
right now. Yeah, it is.
Ugh.
With military action in Iran and general flight to safety and investor sentiment, which was not surprising, the most recent bellwether 10-year U.S. Treasury yield is now up to 4.35%, which is up 30 basis points over the past month, and that's been significant. So that's had an impact on 30-year fixed rate mortgages as well. Couple of other statistics. In February 26, housing starts were up about 1.48 million annualized units, which actually marked a strong start to housing production for the year, but that was February data. The housing market in early 2026 is showing modest growth in both sales and stable pricing. And then what I typically do is provide information on regional housing. And the February Bend single-family residential market revealed a median sales price jumped to $725,000, which was up from $680,000 in January. So that's been a significant increase. With 118 sales for the month of February, 34 of these sales were above $1 million, and 35 of these were cash sales. Interesting that days on market for sold properties remains extended at 62 days, a little over 2 months, which is up considerably from the seasonal low point of 21 days back in July of 25. Inventory levels have also dropped to the 2.5 month supply of homes currently listed. And building permits for the month of February were up to 45 compared to 35 in the month of January. Redmond statistics saw a median price that increased to $500,000, which was up from $483,000 for January. And Redmond area permits actually dipped only 13 in February compared to 23 for the month of January. Sales in the Redmond area vacillated between the low of 480 to maybe a high of 520 for an area median sales price. Looking at other markets within Deschutes County, Sisters had a 618,000 median sales price on 8 sales. Sun River was at 853,000 on 12 sales, and La Pine was at 377,000 on 18 sales. I went through a lot of information there quickly. Any questions on any of the economic data?
Is there anything to indicate that, since we didn't have winter and spring is here so early, home buying activity that would typically happen, in May or June is happening now?
That is a very good question. With the elevated level of uncertainty, I think a lot of people that don't need to make a move right now are sitting on the sidelines. And I've heard that from a number of realtors, appraisers, mortgage brokers, et cetera, that there's been a slowdown in activity and people are adopting a kind of a wait and see attitude. I'm a little bit more concerned with the what appears to be elevated price pressure that's kind of out there in the system right now, that I think that's going to have an impact.
Mortgage rates going back up.
Yeah, mortgage rates, 30-year mortgage rates have gone up, like I said earlier, 30 basis points over the last 30 days. And anybody that needs to finance to purchase, it just reduces the amount of their purchasing power.
What's the mortgage interest rate now at 6.3 or?
It's up over that. Yeah, 6.3 to 6.5, depending on kind of where you're at. And that, a month and a half ago, it actually briefly dipped below 6%. I think I reported that in January. February Treasurer's report. The portfolio balance was $383.6 million at month end, which was an increase of $12.1 million from January, and also an increase of $19.2 million from last year. This increase was primarily due to incoming property tax receipts, which was offset by ongoing funding needs, including our courthouse project that was just discussed. Net investment earnings were $1,114,500 for the month, which was $117,000 lower than last month's earnings, but $30,000 higher than a year ago. And as I've indicated, we are starting to see the impact on our monthly earnings from overall reductions in our portfolio balance and also declines in the portfolio yield. All portfolio category balances are well within policy guidelines. The LGIP rate dropped to 4% for the month of February, which was down from 4.1% previously. And then also, the FBI, the First Interstate Bank rate in February remained at 3.65%. And these rates are again reflective of recent Fed rate cuts and declining short-term investment yields. Overall portfolio yield slipped at 3.92%, which was down from 4% for the prior month. And also, I've been proactive with the board over the last few months regarding my forecast that we achieved our peak in portfolio yield a few months back for this rate cycle. However, with what's happening here recently, we might start to see rates actually go the other direction. 2 to 3 year rates are up 30 basis points in the last 3 weeks. And again, that's that kind of flight to safety that we talked about earlier. During the month of February, I made $8 million in investments, and our 5-year maturity distribution schedule reflects these recent investments with maturities remaining over, kind of 3+ years. Average time to maturity is now 1.36 years, which provides a buffer against near-term rate volatility. And I feel like the portfolio right now is in pretty good shape. And again, our very conservative investment policy should insulate us from some of the economic volatility that's out there right now. Any questions regarding this report?
That maturity distribution is sure spread out, balanced nice out in the future, because usually isn't that clear.
Yeah, we've been a very
Working hard to
targeted
get
approach
there,
to target roughly $7 to $8 million redemptions monthly. And then we also have our annual debt servicing figured in there as well. So I think from a cash flow, distribution standpoint, I feel like we're in pretty good shape.
And then the last little bit for the courthouse funds.
Yeah, basically the targeted investments that I had made earlier basically run out of the portfolio. Even though we've got additional, I think it was $90 million in funding needed for the courthouse. Funds are out there, but they're just not targeted with particular redemptions.
Yep.
It's nice to see that we have over $1 million more interest income this year than the prior. That's nice.
Yeah,
So good
yeah,
job.
well, yields have stayed higher for longer, as we talked about earlier, but they have started to decline, and it'll remain to be it will be interesting to see what happens over the next probably 30 to 60 days with the rate environment.
So Bill, if are you saying that if we were to see the county rate of return coming back up again, now it would be sort of tracking the treasury rates?
Yeah,
That would be the key
much
indicator.
more correlation right now because of the low yielding investments that were out there previously that are now out of the portfolio. And but we are, I think the lines have certainly come together much better than we've seen previously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before finance report.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Robert Tintel, Chief Financial Officer. So today we are here to talk about the February 2026 financial reports, even though we're almost at the end of March. As of February 2026, which is about almost 67% through the fiscal year. Before I get into the financial report, just a few updates regarding the budget process for next fiscal year. So departments are working on their budgets. They have until tomorrow to submit into the budget office their departmental budgets. Next week, departments will start meeting with the budget officer, County Administrator Nick Leback. We'll have those meetings all day next week. And as you know, then because we're almost in April, then the following month is May, and then we'll spend 3 days together on May 12th to 14th talking about the proposed budget. So we've been working on it for a while, but now it's almost here too. So a lot of work going on behind the scenes. But back to the financial report. The good news is for most of the funds coming through here, the projections for most of the funds haven't changed a whole lot when we look at year-end projections. So it's still on target for what we've been doing. So there hasn't been a lot of change from last month. I'll still just highlight a few things here. Again, the first page, both in the general fund revenues and expenditures are on target for this fiscal year. That's kind of the headline there. Next page in your packet is the position control summary. So you will notice that there's the trend of total FTE reducing. We started the year at 1,250 FTE, and now it's down to 1,218. And as you know, just a reminder, it's due to the reductions in juvenile, adult parole and probation, health services, sheriff's office. So now year to date, unfilled is 9.5%, but if you look at February only, the month unfilled is 7.59%. So you can see that percentage is going down because of the unfilled positions that we took out of this. You can see in the report, there's still some places where positions need filled, but the percentage overall has declined because of the reduction in the positions. Next, page 34, the overtime report. So the total overtime budget is about 3.7 million and actuals are about 2.2 million. To date, we've spent about 60% of the overtime budget, which again, if we're about 67% through the year, we've underspent on that. And as always, the sheriff's office has a majority of the overtime and budgeted at 2.5 million and our actuals are 1.5. That's 65% again, which is under the year to date through February of 67%. We'll skip by these next few summary pages. and go to page 39 in the packet, which is just a detail of the general fund. Again, the projections didn't change from last month significantly, so it's on target from where we were there. Next page, similar page 40 for juvenile fund 030. It is similar to last month, but there was a bit more savings in their expenditure due to personnel and M&S cost reductions in their projections. So again, this is compared to budget, not their total funding levels. But that's a different story, different conversation there. On page 41, TLT Fund 160, 170. So the headline is lodging tax revenue is up 3% from fiscal year 25 and up 4.7% compared to budget. Again, because we know we budgeted conservatively. Now, up 3% sounds like good news, but last month I shared we were up 3.9%, right? And that percentage has continued to decline since December. The good months, July was up 11.3%, October was up 7.9%, November 9.4%. So those were the good months that helped brought us up. As we know, maybe remember August was flat, September was lower the year to date for that. But January saw a 6.6% decrease, February a 7.4% decrease, and then now this what's brought us down to year to date at being at 3%. So we're still up, which is good compared to how we budgeted, still up from last year, but it's not at what it was or could have been in there. And just so you know, we are planning on a work session on April 6th to talk about the transient lodging tax and the results of House Bill 4148. And so we'll be coming to the board with an overview of our the measures that the voters have approved, given our history, review that, look at the new, and then see, just have a discussion with the board about the future of TLT.
What's the date?
6th, I think, Monday the 6th.
Robert,
Yes.
if we are so lucky as to finish out the year ahead.
Yes.
Which if next 3 or 4 months are just average. Which maybe they won't be, but if we are so lucky as to come out at a few $100,000 ahead, what have we discussed as options for those funds?
Typically what happens is the practice and the policy has been the remainder or net revenue left over from TLT goes into the county capital general projects. So we continue to do that. And that's where you'll see down below in the transfers, any balance left over from the revenue, less the regular occurring expenses and transfers, it's made up in that county transfer line. And then that's the fund that the board uses for, new capital purchases, specific goals or priorities that the board has there. So the default is it goes into that fund.
I knew we were doing that before the courthouse, but then after we put in place a whole structure around that, I couldn't remember if that was still what we were.
And then as you may recall, in recent years, the general fund used to provide the funding mechanism for that general capital, but we don't have that luxury anymore. So now the TLT is the only funding mechanism that is funding that source now. Okay, you're welcome. I'll go to Sheriff's Office, page 44, that's Fund 255. The other funds are continuing on target. The Sheriff's Office did adjust their projections for their requirements, that midsection there. It decreased it by $565,000, so their ending fund balance in that last column projection did more favorable, so ending at $24.6 million there, or $259,000 over compared to budget. So they're on target for the size of the fund, only being a difference of $259,000 from budget is good there. Next, page 45, OHP and Capital Reserve Fund 270. They're projecting a fund balance of $39 million, and that includes the purchase and closing costs for the Wyatt building, and the budget adjustment for that will be forthcoming there. The next couple health service funds, part of 274, are same projections of last year, but on page 48, behavioral health. The net ending fund balance is just slightly down from last month, barely a change, but 1.8 million was the projection in December, so it's still just real similar to that. So not a lot of significant changes in their projections there. Page 50, Community Development Fund 295. We talked about permitting volumes. Again, you get the monthly report. Volumes through February continue to indicate stabilization over the past 4 fiscal years and remain in alignment with activity experienced during the 2014-2015 time period. So just that's what we seem to be hearing. It's just that's the new normal, I guess. And their target ending fund balance or projection again remains at $1 million. That's what they try to target within that fund. Next page, 51, Road Fund 325. Their ending fund balance increased by $832,000, mainly due to decreased expenditure projections. And as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year, they're tightening up their year-end projections. I do want to point out in the revenues in the top portion, resources, forest receipts, we have a budget of $426,000. As of February, we still had not received any SRS or forest receipt payments. However, on March 10th, we did receive $288,000, and that was the true up from the new passage of the bill. It says the payment is due to county for the distribution of 25% receipts in U.S. Forest Reserve, representing the sale of timber and rentals and sources from September 2024, because the SRS measure, when it was reauthorized through fiscal year 2026 and payments for 2027. It also directs U.S. Forest Service to make back payments for fiscal year 24 through the current year. So that was part of that back payment. So we're expecting in April is when we'll get our normal payment. So that's kind of a catch-up funding that we received. It'll be reflected in the March statement, and then hopefully either April or May we'll see the next payment there. So more to come on that line item, but still year to date it's 0 as of February 28th.
And Robert, we're gonna see our PILT amounts reduced.
Yes, yeah, those come into play. And PILT,
I mean, if they go back, if we get SRS from 2 years ago, do they go back and subtract? Do they claw back PILT payment that they made to us?
Yeah, I wouldn't expect them to claw it back to PILT payments. Does it affect the future SRS payment? Because of that may be a question, but since Chris Doty may know more on that part, but there wasn't specifically anything that I read about any clawback or how that comes to impact the future one. That wasn't in the information.
What's the flexibility of those dollars? So we're getting forest receipts, PILT, SRS. We could do pretty much anything with them, right?
Yeah, there is more flexibility. I mean, there is a part that goes to schools that we have to continue to do that, but the portion that we use.
So just acknowledging we're in that enviable position where we're able to do this also.
Yes, it doesn't have to be directed 100% to that portion there. The general fund does receive about $500,000 off the top, and then the rest is divided between road, natural resources, and the general fund.
Yeah, so from the Fed's perspective, it's highly flexible. From our perspective, I think we're somewhat constrained by what we have traditionally allocated those funds to. So, and upset departmental expectations if we radically change.
Yeah, and I'm sure their upcoming budget is planning on consistency with our current practice, but obviously that is the Board and Budget Committee determination on those funds. Today we're gonna flip through a couple pages. Page 55 in your packet, Solid Waste Fund 610. Their revenue projection, the resources have been updated. There has been, as it also states in Note A, the fiscal year-to-date disposal tons are running about 5% greater than last year to date. With the larger than budgeted influx, it's really due to the commercial on the commercial side. So the majority in commercial disposal fees is where their revenue projections are up about 1.7 million at this point, followed by private disposal fees. So they did adjust their revenue projections at this time. The rest of these, the next following funds, again, no change in their projections or where they're expected to be. We get to the risk management fund on page 672, or sorry, page 62, fund 670. Other ending fund balance increased by 528,000, and that was due to a decrease in the general liability expense projection. So as we get closer again to the end of the fiscal year, they're tightening up their expenditures on that fund, and so it's favorable outcome of where we expect to be that. And the rest of the funds are the same. I'm not even going to make a comment on the health benefits fund because the projection is the same from last month. So we're on target for where we expect that to be. But I guess that is a comment.
Don't want to, yes.
That's right. Any
Don't
other
touch it.
comments or questions? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, the agenda says other items, and then we've tacked on items 5 and 6 since the development of this agenda, but maybe we should just do items 5 and 6 and then do other items. Item number 5 is consideration of the Wallowa County Wolf Resolution. Commissioner Pavone requested that we discuss this on our agenda today.
So yeah, Wallowa County Commissioner just asked us, what's our opinion? Do we want to take a position? Would we write our own resolution up, or is there any activity in Deschutes County? So this was just bringing it for the three of us. And as you know, I'm not going to the Wolf Committee meeting, so I don't have a feel for it. I think some of the specific items in here just talks about wildlife population management for hunting levels. Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife is kind of the place where this would happen. Hunting, so there's management levels that are way down, and population level and balance with prey base. It's just some of the words I pulled out here. And then therefore further resolve ODF and W to coordinate with Wallowa County to fully implement the existing rules and policies which protect the ranching community hunting resources by acting quickly and decisively to follow the Oregon Wolf Conservation and Management Plan. So I don't have a strong opinion about this. Maybe there's a thumbs up to Wallowa County for their resolution. Maybe it's something like that, or I don't know. This is kind of your world more than mine.
Yeah, Commissioner Hillock has been in contact with all of us, I think, since January about this. I did have some discussions with him about it. Since Wallowa County is such a different place than Deschutes County, I didn't feel like it was necessarily appropriate for us to support the requests that they were making to wolf management statewide, because those are things that might be helpful, valuable, make sense in Wallowa County, but I don't think saying we need to change the whole state wolf management plan that affects all of us is necessarily the right message. So I
do like the wolf management plan as it is. Well, and I think
I don't necessarily like the wolf management plan as it is, but I don't think that what people in Wallowa County need or want to ask for is the same as what we would need or want to ask for. They basically have a third of all the wolves in the state of Oregon in one county.
Well, they're spreading. Trust me, they're spreading. My family's herd has got the wolves following them constantly. My brother-in-law wrote a letter which I've sent to Congress. The carcasses of elk are incredible, and I even look at my little deer herd at my house. I used to have 9 deer. The buck got hit by a car 2 years ago, but we're down to 4. And you know, I know they're out there and it's a tragedy because I see the elk moving around. I saw apparently 12 to 15 elk came down Butter Creek the week I was there in Hepner, and they'd never been down there before. The elk they're running for their lives, and the cows actually are running for their lives because the wolves don't leave them alone. My family's lost over 12 cattle that they've documented recently. It's unbelievable what those wolf packs are doing. Once they start killing, they don't stop.
Yeah, well, there's still a very different setting than.
We had wolves in Lapine walking in the street. We've got videos of them in Lapine and in Sun River.
Yes,
And they are no
wolves
longer
here.
scared of people because nobody's been shooting at them. I saw the video with 5 wolves surrounding someone on a horse, and the wolf came growling up to the guy. Well, that wolf has not been shot at.
And the reason that, the reason we should want there to be a couple more wolves in this western part of Oregon, or what they call the West Region under the State Wolf Management Plan, is that when there are 7 breeding pairs for 3 consecutive years, then we get bumped to Management Plan 2 or Management Plan 3, which is what they have in Eastern Oregon.
My neighbor has 2
which
wolves on his
provides-
front deck.
Well, and I wasn't looking for controversy, I'm here for
I'm telling you,
education.
they're in Deschutes County and I see the videos, they're in Lapine, and somebody,
Do we
Yes.
show
The
support
wolf-
to
We
the
wolves?
wolf
show
management-
support.
The wolf management plan
the state
The
is
wolf-
not
the wolf
managing the
management plan
wolves, they're killing
is,
elk, deer, and then they're killing and the cougars are killing, and it's really, talking to the Oregon Hunters Association and the Elk Foundation, like they've got to do something now. So yes, I want to
what-
give support to Wallowa County.
So what I would propose is not that we write to the Fish and Wildlife Commission and say, we want what Wallowa County wants. I would propose that we write to the Fish and Wildlife Commission and express sympathy for the situation in Wallowa County and their needs and concerns. That's
Needs
it,
and
because
concerns, let me tell you what a
because
cow
what
does.
they want,
You are,
what they want from the wolf management plan, doesn't apply to us yet.
oh no,
Because
yeah,
we are
that's the
not
right
in
word. Yet.
we are not in management zone 3. We are not in a federally delisted area. Okay, so it is not, anything that they want, Commissioner Hillock is saying, hey, like, we want to do this so that, to help you, but the situation is completely
We
different.
need more wolves before we have to manage them like they
Oh,
do.
yeah, right.
No.
We need more wolves,
No,
let's get a few more.
we are still in a federally listed area, and we are not at the same management level that they are. And we don't have 70 wolves in our county.
And I have to say, I'm not experienced in
And
this.
let me also just say, I've talked to some of the biologists about this. I do not expect us to have, based on the habitat, the kinds of problems that they have in northeastern Oregon. We have forested areas, and we have areas where there's a lot of livestock production happening, and they don't overlap that much. It's the places where you have lots of timber and you have lots of livestock grazing that you have problems. And as we know, we don't have.
My family runs cattle, and where they have them running now, there is not timber, and those wolves just follow them around. They're now getting beeped, my family's getting beeped in the middle of the night because the pack has come back in again.
There
It's
is
unbelievable.
timber within 20 miles,
Wolf
30
will
miles.
travel 30 miles a day.
That's right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I
in
know
Deschutes County, we have huge swaths of area, particularly in East County, where there's, meaningful grazing going on. And
Well, all I know is-
there's not forest land for tens of miles away. That's why.
I feel so badly for Lisa Collier. I remember she was representing the cattle grower ranchers in Wallowa County. They are at their wits' end. When you only get 80% of your cattle pregnant for the next year, and then you have to sell those, and your herd is getting smaller and smaller. Yeah, they're
All
losing
right,
their
Go
livestock.
ahead and write your letter and have Commissioner Cologne sign out. Let's move on.
Okay, so as I say, we're trying to have a conversation, you're kind of speaking over
We're
us.
not having a conversation. I'm being shouted down.
Oh,
But I think you feel.
I
like
have not been able to finish a single sentence.
that's a tragedy when you talk about wolves and cows forgetting that they're mothers. They just want to survive. They are scared to death. And I see the elk out by me. They're always moving around now. It's really frightening.
And I'm looking for a little bit of grounding on, what's the educational opportunity, what's the possible advocacy? And one of my questions is could or would the Wolf Committee be able to take a position or get
No,
engaged
that's
in
not
this
the
kind of
function.
thing?
The function of the Wolf Committee is to seek and distribute funds for prevention or depredation. It's a funding mechanism for certain kinds of projects. If you want to get involved in this, it has to be getting yourself up to speed and making a decision as a board of commissioners.
Well, as I say, I mean, it looks like.
And we have two members of the State Fish and Wildlife Commission who live in Deschutes County.
Well, I saw one of them yesterday. That's
Very
Mark
welcome
Van was
to-
there also.
You're very welcome to talk to
Okay, well,
those
I guess, I have all I need to know. I mean, this is a hot topic. You're very opinionated about it. You want to tell us the way it is. I'd like to learn more about it.
I'm trying to give you the background.
And I'm trying to tell you the truth, what's happened to the cattle industry in Oregon, how if you have 20% of your cattle are no longer getting pregnant or they're miscarrying and the herds are just getting smaller and smaller. And then those cows that have a calf on their side, because now they try and survive, they're scared to death. You can see it in their eyes. They quit nursing and that calf is just left there if it does survive. So they're eating, they killed two of my family's cows ready to calve in December. They rip out the babies and the cows bleed to death. I mean, it's really ugly.
I have
But
great
that's
compassion.
okay.
I have
That's
great
hope.
compassion for
I can
what
tell.
people are experiencing in Northeast Oregon. That's why I wanted to be involved with the Wolf Committee that we set up here, so that people would have adequate compensation, so that people would be able to prevent depredations.
Okay,
You
well, so
can't-
that's a different path.
Yes.
Here's money, your cows are dead. How about we don't have
Yeah,
dead
but
cows? So.
you don't even find the calf
But
though.
we
That's the
are-
problem.
What we're talking about today here
Yeah,
is
there's another
is
path.
what Deschutes County wants to do about Wallowa County's resolution.
I'd say this,
Deschutes
it's out of
County-
control for the state.
Well, as I say, I was here just to learn, and now the three of us have discussed it. I can do some more homework and figure out if there's a position to be taken or an advocacy. But yeah, this is kind of what I was looking for. Where are we at here?
Thank you.
Commissioner Dare, do you have any thoughts about what action could be done by the board?
No, I would just support them.
Support.
I know it's an incredible financial burden for these people. You know, in 2015, I was talking to the people from Wallowa County. There was an article in the Nugget, how many wolves I had up there. And that number was so high in 11 years ago.
Well, and this is, I don't even know if this is, submitted wolf resolution, there's no signatures on it, so I'm not sure what the status of this is specifically.
It's their county resolution. I mean, so
Well, I was
without
told-
signatures,
it's not even,
finalized.
oh no, this is, they finalized this in January and they sent it out. You all saw this through the Eastern Oregon Counties Association. They asked for support in bringing this to the Fish and Wildlife Commission
And we don't need to take any
over
other further
the
to
last several months. So, I mean, we've seen this. I've spoken with Commissioner Hillock about it. He appreciates, my interest and the perspective I shared with him. I'm just trying to tell you what the situation is in Deschutes County and what I think an appropriate response for Deschutes County is. If you want to make this about
I just want
state-
people to
wolf
know how
management
dangerous it
statewide,
is
you
in
can
La
do-
Pine. If we
you can
have
do that.
wolves walking around on the street in La Pine in the middle of the day is what I've heard. So I've seen some pictures.
Do you know-
They're there.
Do you know when the last time a wolf attacked a human being in the continental United States was?
Just wait. I'll be sharing from your name when they.
Okay. No, thanks for the discussion. We don't need to take it any further.
All right, item number 6, management of and costs related to the removal and disposal of yard debris to mitigate wildlife hazards. This is something that Commissioner Adair asked to be added to the agenda.
You know, we just had the fire in La Pine the other day, Firehouse, Commissioner Devon. And thanks, Jeff, for coming today. I was just thinking of something. We've got the Firewise coming up soon. But what is it we can do in today's world in order to get people to really start cleaning up now, because it is so bloody dry out there, other than the trace of snow we got today and the moisture? You know, I saw it from a lot of people. They said, please don't have burning anymore. You know, the burns that are getting out of control, you know, what does that cost? Could we have, you know, tell people, everyone come to our transfer stations to not now, and if they bring in a load, then they qualify to get one free load or something, just to encourage people to step up sooner rather than later.
So if I could, I'd like to add a little bit. So Jeff, we have heard from a number of constituents in the last couple of weeks about, you got to get people to stop doing pile burns at their house. Let them have more fire-free time. And I want both of those things. I would like people to have more fire-free time. I would like people to have, I would like less people to do burning of their, of the fuels that they have cleared off of their own land, and use other methods of disposals. I'd like to see people doing more defensible space around their houses. So these are all good things. But I also just want to say, and I haven't had a chance to write back to all those people yet, but that I don't necessarily think the two things are connected. We do have fire-free weeks. There are people who make use of that, and we have those fire-free weeks, and there's still people whose preference is to do pile burning at their house. And I'm not, I would want to see, survey data, or hear testimony from the people who, the kind of profile of the person who burns the pile at their own house. I would want to hear from them. Oh, if you made fire-free available for 2 more weeks, I would do that instead of burning at my own house, because they already have access to fire-free, and I think they are making a choice to burn at their own house for a whole variety of reasons. So while I would like to see less people doing pile burning at their house, there's a lot of reasons why people choose to dispose of their fuels that way. And I'm not persuaded just off the bat that extending fire-free is going to switch them over. So that's just a little bit more context on where your border is coming from.
So Jeff, do we know how many of those pile burning fires get away every year? Like 3 days later, they take off burning because they weren't properly out. I mean, that seems like it's a county problem that happens every year.
That's maybe not his.
I have to.
No, I know.
Maybe natural resources, but
I have data from ODS that I can send to Nick.
That's okay. We don't. I just wonder.
You don't actually want to know. You just want to ask the question.
No, I've seen it. We've already had a fire that got away this year already. When are our fire-free days? Maybe we could share that information.
so we're in May.
Introduce and welcome.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Yeah, I was
thank
gonna
you
say,
so
I know
much.
people fired
Congratulations.
shots at me, and I just got here.
Congratulations on your appointment.
Aren't you happy?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for taking the job.
Jeff Brewer, Director of Solid Waste.
Director, congratulations.
Thank you. So week into it. This is week 2.
Your dream
Be
job.
nice. So our fire-free dates are May 15th to the 24th at Knott, and June 5th through the 13th at our transfer stations.
June 5th through what?
The 13th.
Okay. So is there any way there's no way we can move those dates up? It just seems like such an incredibly dry year that.
It is. We can also get late weather. We've had that before in the past too, where we've had it too soon, especially down south in La Pine where.
We've already had the fire in La Pine.
And so we have to set these dates 6 months in advance typically, and we have to get staffing for it. So Heart of Oregon does a lot of our staffing.
They haven't been at these Sisters landfill for years.
No, but they do.
They used to be there.
They do
haven't
not.
been there.
So we put their resources at naught. Typically, it's, historically Cloverdale has participated in Sisters instead of the Forest Service. But, currently our staffing, we don't have staffing for events, so we have to go hire it out and contract it. And I think we're just finished putting together a contract for $35,000 for Heart of Oregon to help us with Fire Free this year. They're on other projects outside of this timeframe. They're really on the contamination reduction, where they're going to go out and do the recycle and inspect carts. There's pilot programs with that. That happens right before, so we have them slotted in this date. So it's a fairly fixed date for us. And also logistically with how we're working our working phase and where we can separate the two really waste streams. Because essentially we're treating the yard waste as garbage as it comes in. I mean, that's about the value of it.
We call it alternate daily cover though, right?
It is, but technically needs to be mixed 50% soil on that process, so.
And it needs to be ground, because the fire-free stuff that people drop off right at the edge of knot doesn't get ground before it gets pushed into the landfill. It takes up huge amounts of space and costs us probably hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of lost landfill capacity.
Million plus. I mean, it's unfortunately yard debris or wood waste is becoming a waste stream that is similar to what your household is.
Well, I'm glad to know you skipped Father's Day because that's the 21st of June. And thanks for not having it on Mother's Day weekend.
See, we plan these on purpose.
Yes.
There's a lot that goes behind it.
So what I think that this early season escape debris burn fire highlights for us, and this bigger question of, can we do more fire free? It indicates, number one, that there are people who are clearing fuel on their property, and we want that. Number two, that there are more and less dangerous ways of disposing of that debris. And yes, ODF has statistics and can tell you that escaped yard debris burns at people's homes, at people's properties, is one of the number one causes of human-caused fires in the state of Oregon. So while we really want them to be clearing the fuels off their land, we also really want to give people other ways of getting rid of that material. And we know that we offer some of those already. There are a lot of neighborhoods across Deschutes County that participate in FireWise who get the dumpster. Through our natural resources program, they get the dumpster. It's very helpful for them to, have a dumpster right there in their neighborhood. They can bring the stuff there. And I don't know whether when the dumpster then goes to not, whether that gets ground before it gets dumped in or not. But so that's not that great. It's not as good from the landfill management end of things then either. But we also know that fire free is both expensive to administer, to operate, but then it also costs us a lot of landfill space. So like all this points to, we need to be doing more things to make it possible for people to get rid of that, of those fuels that they've cleared off their property, in ways that are as safe as possible and cost us as little as possible. And I think that invites a broader discussion than, just going to, well, okay, can we expand fire free? Because again, I don't necessarily, someone who has access to fire free, 1 week a year and chooses to burn the stuff in their yard instead, I'm not convinced that that is, making it 2 weeks a year or 3 weeks a year is gonna be, is going to flip the switch for them and make them decide that they wanna do that. They wanna load up their truck and haul it to Knott or, one of our transfer stations instead.
So they could actually go to Knott first, there's 2 weekends there, and starting the 15th, and then they could do their local transfer. If they really have a serious problem at their house.
Mhm.
And they have a big enough piece of, do you ever turn anybody away that wants to dump their yard waste?
Oh, no, we'll tell them if they come in with yard waste, say they're at Lapine Transfer and we're having the free event or not, they can take it up there. Also, Sun River has one and it's a different weekend, I believe also. I've utilized that in the past myself, hitting multiple ones.
Okay.
And they can, I mean, if they bring in a truckload, it's not fire free, what's the cost?
$6 a cubic yard.
So, it's a cost, but I don't know if that's cost prohibitive to somebody who has, who wants to use that disposal method instead of burning it at their house.
Could someone come in and just be charged $6 then?
It's per cubic yard.
Okay, do you weigh it?
No,
No,
it's
you just look
measured.
at it?
It's measured.
Volume.
Okay. But you're saying it's $6 and yet somebody that wants to dump an old file cabinet, it's like $18 or something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we subsidize our yard debris with our tip fees.
Okay. Well,
We have seen a 50% increase in the first 2 months. I think over at Deschutes Recycle, pulling rough numbers this morning, probably weather driven, and I think people are more aware. So that was pretty telling.
And that's outside the fire free.
Mhm. That's just in January and February. That's significant.
And at which station was that?
Not,
what about other stations? Anything you heard?
I don't have the data on those. I wasn't able to pull those without some more reports.
Okay.
I would assume they're up for sure, especially at Southwest where there's access. Typically you don't have access to any of your property until about now.
So Commissioner DeBonne, did you see people cleaning up then after your first warning fire?
I haven't seen it, I haven't observed a change in behavior, but I think, having a fire that breaks out like that reminds everybody that if you are gonna burn, you gotta be real careful. But as I said, I don't kind of drive past the transfer station enough to know if there's more or less people there.
See, I drive by mine almost every day.
Oh, I drive by it multiple times a day, but how do you know?
You gotta drive
Who's
in there
going in?
to see.
Well, I usually meet all the trucks on the road, pulling the trailers with the covered loads, of course.
Oh, and there are covered loads going in there.
Okay.
One of the things is, my experience, I just had a little cleanup fire on my property, you just toss the branches on, hopefully not a big pile, but a smaller pile, and you throw branches on as it's burning. But to get that trailer kind of loaded down and solid is tricky with branches that go in every direction. So you're ended up probably half air when you try to stack a bunch of branches in a trailer, so it's tricky.
Yeah, we charge accordingly with that. We tell staff, take that airspace into consideration when you're doing it. So it is, if you have a bunch of small pines and they stack, but you get some bigger broadleaf, they don't.
So could we do like a public service announcement with our fire free then to tell people that if you really have a problem at your house and you want to get something done, you can go to Knott first. I mean, it'll be a longer drive for you, but you actually have 4 weekend opportunities. I mean, I just think we have to push cleanup as much as possible. And I know somebody has a new house and they're worried about their house, so.
Yeah, and we promote all the dates, usually at one time as well, because they're fairly condensed on the timeframes.
When I get notices, it's about all the dates, not just the one that's near me. It would probably be more work and it'd cost us more to target, to specific geographies.
And it is an option. I mean, you get people that are in between different places out in, like Sun River area or, Cloverdale. You could go to Redmond or Sisters, both.
Well, maybe just plan the notification, then just put it out an extra week early, repeat it, just an extra week early, just so people know it's coming a little more. Maybe that's an action item.
Right, that would be great.
And that probably Kim helps with that.
That would
We
be
do,
nice.
we do put out communications about Fire Free through media releases, right?
I know, because last year I read it and they'd taken my quote out in the bulletin. I know, I went like, what happened to my little nothing quote? It was removed. So anyway, yeah, I saw it.
Go out April 2nd, Commissioner Chang.
Thanks, Whitney. But let's do a couple of them in case somebody misses it, please.
There we go. Action by the Board of Commissioners.
Boy, oh
Yeah,
boy.
this is this broader concern about how do we make it easier for people to dispose, easier and safer for people to dispose of material that they have generated by doing defensible space around their house. I think is an ongoing concern for the Board of Commissioners, and we need to be thinking on a lot of different fronts. I mean, that's where the interest in the biochar came from. And air burners, there are a lot of different ways to skin the cat, so to speak.
Well, we don't want to talk about skinning any cats, please. I have 2 of them. I love them. But
How about skin the cougar?
we could talk about that. And then also, there are grants for goat use in the state this year. So, please, people, there are goats out there. We have 500 goats in Terrebonne that do a magnificent job cleaning up property, so. And then don't forget the burn by. If you really want to get creative. So Jeff, it's been a great second week so far.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thanks,
coming.
Commissioners. Yep.
Thanks. Okay, are there any other items?
I did some last Thursday, right?
I can just mention that there's a regional housing council meeting tonight. The Kids Center has their Healing Hearts lunch tomorrow. There's also an MPO, a second MPO policy board meeting for the month tomorrow afternoon.
I don't have anything else.
Nope.
Okay. We're ready to move on now to executive session.
Deschutes County Board of Commissioners will now convene an executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660. The specific authorization for this executive session is ORS 192.660 2D, which allows the board to meet in order to discuss labor negotiations. Designated staff and the media are allowed to remain during the executive session. However, the media may only report that the board met in executive session and the identified basis for meeting in executive session. Recording devices are not permitted. No final decisions will be made, and at the conclusion, we will open the doors and invite the audience back to the meeting.
Recording stopped? Oh, yeah, that's what I was gonna wait.
County Commissioners,
Maybe we'll lead in.
The board is reconvening, and they are coming out of executive session. They met and convened as both the governing body of Deschutes County and also Deschutes County 911 Service District, but both in regards to labor negotiations.
Yeah. No decisions were made, so staff will continue the work that they're doing on both of those fronts. And this meeting is adjourned.